Hey guys, I've been playing X-Plane 11 on the ZIBO mod for a few months now, and I must admit it is the most immersive, incredible simulation I've ever played, and I'm sure many of you share my sentiments in that. It can be a bit intimidating, but it is incredibly immersive. So during my time learning how to fly the ZIBO Mod in X-Plane 11, I found it quite challenging to find online resources that sort of bring everything together into one basic flight, from starting up all the way to climbing on the VATSIM network, talking to ATC, taking off, getting to your destination, and parking at the gate. And that includes setting up your flight plan, a few basic phraseology for talking to controllers on the VATSIM network. And so I was hoping to make a video that's kind of just gives a basic tutorial for everything. Now, I'm in no way a professional. I'm actually still a beginner, still learning a lot myself. So I feel that I know enough to just start a beginner tutorial for all those out there who really think X-Plane 11 isn't fantastic and flight sims in general, and they want to get going, but it's a little bit too much and there's just too much resources online. Now, Flight Deck to Sim is a real captain, and he does plenty of tutorials on the ZIBO mod, and his work is, I've learned the most from him. He's a really good creator and teacher, so I would highly recommend watching his videos. So you might be asking, well then what's the point of this video? Well, this is just to sort of dumb things down a bit. He goes a little bit too deep into the advanced real world procedures. Now for me, that's really interesting to watch and things, but you know, I'm more just getting the immersive joy out of playing a flight sim, so it's not really want to go too deep into it. So the point of this video is for people like me who just started climbing into flight sims now, and they've always wanted to know what it was like to fly something like a 737, and just give you a bit of a taste of what an entire flight looks like. So this video is more aimed at those people. Alright, so I'm probably going to split this video into multiple parts, but it is going to be quite long, unfortunately. But I wanted to just make sure we cover, you know, everything. I don't want to. You should be able to, after this video, climb into the simulator and do the same flight or a similar flight, no problems. So that's my goal. Alright, so first of all, we're going to do some setup before we can climb into the simulator, just to plan our flight and get the relevant tools we need. Now, this first website I'm at is called Vatastic. Now, this is for VATSIM. So if you're not sure what VATSIM is, then I would highly recommend you go and read up a little bit on that first. VATSIM is basically a network of simulator pilots and air traffic controllers that sort of very professional and give you real like sort of procedures and commands and things that you would normally do if you were flying. Now, I'm not sure how different this is from actual ATC, but as far as I know, it's very similar. So it's incredibly immersive, and I would highly recommend going to look at it before you watch this, because we will be using it. I'm just getting started, so there's still so much I need to learn on the phraseology and things. I've made plenty of mistakes, so I'm in no way a professional in this, but I do want to show you guys the basics just so you can get in and started. Now, this vatastic.com is a website that gives us a map of all the planes currently live in VATSIM and the ATC controllers. Now the reason why I'm showing you this is because this is what we're going to use to choose where we're going to fly. And you might be asking why. Well, it's simple. We want to fly where there is some ATC coverage, right? Because it is a Sunday for me today, so there's not a lot of ATC online. Yesterday there was tons of ATC. Almost the whole of England was covered. I am actually South African, so I would love to fly down in my country, but I've never seen ATC there, so I'm all the way down here. Hopefully one day there'll be some ATC controllers there, and then I'll fly there. But England works just fine. So when you get to this website, you will find these circles. Now that's ATC, and that's their coverage. So you have multiple different types of ATC. You have the delivery, which is the ATC that will give you clearance to where you want to fly. There is ground, which will manage your movements on the ground. The tower, that will take care of taking off and landing. And then we have approach, which will, or departure, they'll sort of take over from once you've taken off, or on your final approach for landing, they'll sort of vector you where you need to go. And then there's center or radar, and they cover a much bigger area, and they will sort of just keep everyone in line in the air and make sure there's no traffic issues. That's the basics of it. I'm not going to go too much into that. I don't think you need to know more than that. There's basically a hierarchy, so in that order that I just said now, in VATSIM, if you have a tower online, they will give you coverage of the controllers above that. So for example, here we have a tower online, but there's no delivery and ground, so therefore tower will actually give us coverage for delivery and ground as well. But that's just the basics, and I highly recommend, once you've done your first flight, to go and read up more about how the VATSIM works. Okay, so at the moment we only have a few controllers online. There's no center controllers. We have a tower controller here, so if I click here, you can see there's a Bristol Tower and Bristol ATIS. Okay, so we will be using Bristol to take off then, and I was thinking then we fly up to Edinburgh. Now you don't want to choose a too long flight or a too short flight. So very short flights, well, a lot of them you can't actually do because you just can't sort of get high enough, but short flights makes it a little bit more stressful because you do not have the breathing time you need to actually go through all the procedures you need to do, and I don't want to spend too much time beforehand planning every single little thing. I would like to do a little bit of planning once I'm in the air for my approach and that, so give yourself a bit of time. So this is about an hour long flight, hour and a half maybe, yeah. So it's a good choice. So once you've got your two airports, so in this case it will be Bristol, which is Echo Golf Golf Delta, to Echo Golf Papa Hotel, so that's Edinburgh. Once you've got those two, we're going to head over to SkyVector. Now SkyVector is actually a real world chart mapper that pilots use to sort of map their flight routes and things like that. Well, you don't actually need to come here. I'm just wanting to show you guys something, how the routing works. So basically, when you have routing on your flight plan, you have your departure point, which in this case is Bristol. You have your destination, which is Edinburgh. Then you have all these lines in between. All these are airways. These are like highways in the air, you could say. that the planes will use to sort of make sure there's not chaos in the air. So the air traffic controllers then can monitor these airways and, you know, make sure that traffic is flowing smoothly. So how the routing works is it's pretty simple. Each one of these points is a waypoint. So you have lots and lots of waypoints, and these numbers or these names on the lines, these are the airway lines, airway numbers. So usually you have a series of waypoints connected by a series of airways. Okay, so to show you what I mean, what we're going to do is we're going to choose a nearby point. So let's just take this Brecken VOR over here. So if we type in its code, which is B Bravo Charlie November, press enter, you'll see it will route us to that point. And the arrow means direct. So direct to Brecken. Then if we wanted to go up this airway over here, which is Uniform November 864, we can type in Uniform November 864 and then press space, and then our waypoint we want to go to. So we can choose any one of these waypoints, but we will choose the one right at the end, which is this Wallasey. Anyway, no, that's Whiskey Alpha Lima. So if we press enter now, this is what our routing looks like. Now this is just to show you guys how routing works. So we'll have a departure and then direct to Brecken, then on the Uniform November 864 to Wallasey. Alright, so this is what routing looks like, so just keep that in mind. That will become pretty relevant shortly. Alright, so now that we know how routing works, let's head to SimBrief. Now SimBrief is a flight sim tool that you will be using to generate a lifelike flight plan. Now this is, you can just register here, it's completely free, very cool. So what this will do is you give it a time for our departure and our destination and our origin, and it will generate a flight plan for us using these routes. Now you can go and make your own one, but you know, what's nice about this is it will figure out for you what height you need to be aware, how much fuel you need. It will figure out all these things. So I would highly recommend it. Alright, so we're just going to say create new flight, and then we're going to type in our airline today is Zulu Sierra, which is South African's call sign, 407, and I do not know why I chose 407, just because it's fun. Okay, then we are going to have our depart, which is Echo Golf Delta, I think, right? Yeah, sorry, my memory is very bad. Echo Golf Papa Hotel. So when you type in these two, it will then load up a whole bunch of information. So we can set our departing time to, let's give ourselves half an hour breathing space. Doesn't really matter, it's just for realism's sakes. Okay, then we go to airframe. So we're flying the ZIBO Mod today, which is the Boeing 737-800. So it's B Bravo 738 is there we go. Okay, then we can leave pretty much the rest standard. So the client profile, how many passengers you can choose if you want to cargo. Auto will kind of generate a random one. Okay, I don't use any of this stuff. Now here it generated a route for us, which is great. It also generated an alternate, so you always need to have an alternate route for in case the airport closes or there's another issue and you can't land there. So we've got the alternate. And yeah, this did a lot of the hard work for us. So all we say now is generate OFP, Okay, and then once it's generated, we are going to save it. It's a PDF that it generates into our plans or charts AviTab folder. So if you don't know what AviTab is, just go check it out. It's part of the ZIBO mod. We can pull this up in Flight. Okie dokie. So the last thing, bit of setup we need is to get some charts. Now I've already downloaded the charts I need for Bristol. So you can just go on to, if you just type in sort of Echo Golf Golf Delta charts, you'll come up to a site like this where we can get pretty much all the charts we need. And the charts we will be using most of the time is the aerodrome and the parking charts. We need those two for any airport you need. They're quite important because when ATC routes you on the ground, you need to know where you are going, and these will tell you. Very, very important. Then the other important ones you'll need is the well, because we departing out of Bristol, we need the standard departure charts. So how standard departures work, we'll get more into it when we're in the flight, but basically there's a standard departure for specific waypoints. Now we are our waypoint rather is telling us we need to go to Brecon first. Okay, now on the routing, like I explained before, so here we have the Brecon, then we have the November 864 airway to the following waypoints and so on and so forth. Now the only thing is this first one is this Brecon 1 X-ray. That's actually a standard departure, so we won't be giving that to ATC because ATC will actually tell us what standard departure we should be using. But so Brecon 1 X-ray, so if we look at this standard departure, this is for Bristol, Brecon 1 X-ray and 1 Zulu. So that depends on whether you go this way around or that way around, but ATC will tell you which one you need to use. So you need to know, listen out for that. So here we can see for Brecon 1 X-ray, climbers ready, bar, and 1 Zulu, and ATC will then tell us which ones to use. Anyway, so we've got all the charts for all of our different standard departures. So now you know what SIDs are. Now in the same way you have SIDs for departures, you have the STARS, standard arrival charts for arrivals. So SIDs and STARS, those are your things. And then the other thing we will need, which we will get later, is the approach chart. So an arrival chart will get you to your approach, and your approach will then either be an ILS or an RNAV or a localizer approach. So I'm not going to go into detail on the approaches because it's a lot, but all I'm going to tell you is we will only be using ILS approaches for the sake of this video. So any of these ILS approaches for each runway. So here's for runway 09 and here's the ILS for runway 27. So grab all the ILS charts for the different runways on your airport that we're going to, and the stars for the airport we're going to, and from the airport we're departing we want all the SIDs, and for both airports we want all the aerodrome and parking charts. Okay, and that's it. So that brings us to the end of our setup. So finally we can climb into the simulator and start this. So I will catch you in the sim. Okay, here we are in our Boeing 737-800, and I've got a head tracking tool I would highly recommend. It is incredible. I can look around the cockpit just by moving my head. I actually built it myself. It was a DIY thing. You can easily find out how to do it online. Just search DIY head tracking. I am not at all a electronic engineer, and it was actually pretty easy, so I would highly recommend it. It cost next to nothing, and it definitely is worth it. Okay, so back to our flight. So here we are at the airport. I am using some custom scenery. I like to download the custom scenery for all the airports I fly, just because they tend to be a little bit more accurate, especially if ATC is trying to direct you to a gate and your airport and the real one is a bit different, then it can cause some issues. So here's the scenery. We are not fortunate enough to get a nice little, I can't remember what those things are called, those gates, but nonetheless, let's get to it. So we're going to start this plane up by first putting on the battery, so that's the DC battery, and then we're going to arm the emergency lights. Now as I do this, you might find that this is not the same as Flight Deck 2 Sim or some of the people who actually know what they're doing, and forgive me, but this is just how I do it and I find it the easiest. I don't do all the tests, like the fire tests and that. If you want to do that, then just go and check it out. It's a startup procedure through someone like Flight Deck 2 Sim. For me, I know that the test is always going to pass because I'm in a sim, so I more want to actually just start the plane up, and yeah. So now that we've got DC power to the plane, we need to get AC power. So we can do that either by using the APU, which is the jet at the back, that'll give us power, or a ground power. So we'll just use ground power for now. We'll start up the APU a bit later. So to do that, just head to the tablet, ground services, connect GPU, ground power unit. And this light will illuminate saying that the ground power is available, and you just put it to on. And boom, the plane has DC and AC power. First thing we do is you go up to the top right here, and these are our IRSs. So we're going to switch these to align, to nav. And these will start to align our IRSs, which are basically like laser gyroscopes that can give the plane situational awareness, movement awareness. And then I just like to turn this knob over here twice, and that'll give us the amount of minutes the IRS will take to start. Now you might find it quite annoying that you can't really see there with this, but I don't like having cameras that move all over so I can easily see. I want to sit in the seat of the captain and do everything from here. So yeah, so these are set to nav, and we have 8 minutes to go on the IRS alignment. Now while that's busy, I usually start with the configuring our FMC. Our FMC is our flight management computer, which is done here. So to do that, we head to charts. Now these are the charts that we downloaded. So we're going to pull up our plan that we generated on SimBrief a few minutes ago, and here it is over here. Now first thing we're going to look at is we're going to go to page 3, and we're going to look at the weights. Now we're just going to configure the plane to match the same as what the flight plan said, and that we're going to do in the tablet because it's not actually part of the plane setup. It's actually just we're saying how many people are coming onto the plane, etc. So our payload will be 16.9 and our fuel will be 6.4. So we just go to fuel and balance. So yeah, 16.9 payload and fuel 6.4. Okay, and if you want to confirm, our total weight is now 68.7. So if we go back to our chart, total weight is, I had to refresh it, 64.7, and our total weight is 64.7 on the flight plan. So which means that is, our weight is configured correctly. Okay, so now we can get back to our FMC, which is down here. Okay, so we're just going to say clear this message. So we're going to clear that out of date message, and we're going to go to the index. Now this is just to identify our FMC. You don't need to worry about anything there. So we go to position initialize. So position is, we need to give it the airport, which is Echo Golf Delta, and the gate, which we are currently at gate 2. Now I like to put this in because sometimes when you're talking to ATC they'll ask you, and you have it here for reference. Then we're just going to say next page, and this is our position reference page, and we're going to grab a GPS location, which is our current GPS location, and we're going to set it here for the IRS position. So this can help the IRS with its situational awareness. Then we are going to go to route. Now this is called the scratch pad. It's what we typed in. It's still in that that origin airport is still in here, so we can just set it into origin, and our destination is Echo Golf Papa Hotel. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't fill in any of this other stuff, it's not necessary. Then we're going to say next page, because now we're going to configure our route. So our route is down here by routing. So we are going to start, we're basically just going to go from left to right until everything's done. Now this basically says Echo Golf Golf Delta 27, so runway 27, by the Brecon 1 X-ray standard departure. So remember I told you about that. We're not going to put those in here. So this is everything after the standard departure and the standard arrival. So then it's Brecon Bravo Charlie November. So we're just going to say for now direct to Bravo Charlie November. Okay. Then if there's multiple points with that name, it'll come up with an option. So it'll ask you which one is it. So it is Brecon. That is the one that we want. Okay. So now you can see it says direct to Brecon. Then we're gonna go through the November 864 airway to Knighton. So we're gonna say November 864. Now we use the via side because that's the airway to Knighton, which is the other side. Okay, and we're just going to keep repeating. So then Uniform Papa 17 to Knockin. Okay, and then Uniform Papa 16 to Rival. Now it's pretty good to say these out loud, because what will happen sometimes is ATC will direct you to one of these sort of as a shortcut, so it's good to know them, to know what you're here for. Okay, Uniform November 601 to Escdo. Uniform 601. My memory. To Esk. Okay, next page. Then okay, then it's the Tweed 3 Alpha arrival into Edinburgh on runway 24. So we're not going to configure those. So same with the departure and the arrival, we're not going to configure those. So that completes our routing for now. So we can say activate, and whenever this light illuminates means it's not actually configured into the plane yet, so we can just say execute, and then it will say it's the active route. Okay. Then our performance initialization page will pop up. Now this is pretty easy to configure. We're just going to select the top one. It will put in our gross weight and our cruise center of gravity, depending on what we inputted previously on the tablet. Our zero fuel weight and reserves will be the amount of fuel we'll use to get to our alternate, which is Manchester Airport, according to our flight plan. And we're going to use 1.6 tons, 1.7 tons fuel. So we'll just say 1.7. Okay, then our cost index, if we go to the first page, is the CI at the top here. 757. I know that has something to do with efficiency, I'm not really sure what it is, but anyway. Alright, then we need to put our cruise altitude, which will be, I know there's somewhere you can check here, I can't remember. What I just do is, maybe someone can help me with that, but I just go to the flight log, and you can see here flight level goes from 31104 all the way up to 240, and then 280, and then it starts descending. So our cruise altitude will be 280. So we just say 280, enter. For those of you who don't know what flight level means, basically it's the same as altitude. So 1,000 feet is technically flight level 001. So it's in thousands. Sorry, not 001. Sorry, 010. So not bad. Now the reason why we talk about flight level and not altitude in feet is because, as far as I understand, once you reach a certain altitude called your transition altitude, where is the altitude above the airport, where we can configure the barometer of the pressure of the atmosphere at this moment, so that our barometer can correctly give us accurate altitude information. Once we reach our transition altitude, which is a standard altitude above this airport, then we can switch to a standardized barometer setting for all pilots. Now that's because once we cleared up all the terrain and everything, we don't have to necessarily be accurate with our altitude. We just have to be consistent with all the other pilots, so that my 20,000 feet and your 20,000 feet is the same. So anything above the transition altitude, we talk about flight levels rather than just normal altitude. So that's as far as I understand it, and yeah, it works pretty well. So we will switch from our configured barometer setting into standard by clicking the standard button once we reach our transition altitude, which is 6,000 feet at this moment. Okay. Anyway, so we can execute this performance page, and sorry, go back. Click. Okay, then we go to N1 limits. So then we can click on the temperature settings. It'll put that in for us. Then here we have takeoff -1, takeoff -1, -2. This is D rates. So I don't really understand the science behind it with regards to the flight plan, but what I do is I know if I'm using a very long runway, I will derate it to either -2 or -1. Now all that will do is it will change the maximum thrust of your engines in your climb. It'll lower it a little bit just so it's not such a harsh takeoff. If you leave it on the top one, it's 98.3%. That's calculated depending on the weight and all that. Yeah, so I like to just derate it unless it's a very short airport. Okay. Takeoff. Okay, so flaps I always put 5 degrees. Then you just click center gravity to calculate your CG, and it will tell you what trim you should use. So yeah, we're on 5. I'm just going to go down to 4.7, which is about there. Okay. Then here's our V1, V rotate, and V2 speeds. Excuse me. So we're interested in the V2 speed. That we're going to put into our MCP speed over here. This is the speed we need to at least maintain once we have taken off. Okay. So now we can go to our departure. Now at this point, I usually tune into ATIS. Now ATIS is a automated ATC. It's not a person. It's just a message that's recorded. So pilots can tune in at will and listen to the message, and they can get information from that message. So I'm going to tune into ATIS. So to do that, what I usually do is I use my Avi tab to go to airports, and I go to our airport. I'll also get the other our destination airport up for reference. What am I doing? Okay, so here's our 2 airports. So here we can see that the ATIS recorded messages is at 126.02. So 126.0. You can go to the nearest 5. So 0 to 5 is fine. Now let me just quickly connect to VATSIM. Okay, then we're going to go to shows who's online, and yeah, it will show who is currently online. Okay, I see now. I've been babbling so much that it seems our controllers are no longer online, which is the case. Okay, that's no biggie. I'll tell you what, I will just not use VATSIM for now, and I will just pretend that there's some VATSIM, and then in a future video I'll hopefully, I'm still very new in VATSIM as well, but I'll tell you what I normally tell them and what they normally respond with. So let's just disconnect here for now. I'm just going to turn up my Copilot and radio volume so I can use the ADIS built into Explain, which is not great. Let's just disconnect. There we go. Okay. No biggie. So let's tune in.
Bristol Information Oscar. 1200 Zulu weather. Wind 270 at 11, visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 4200 scattered, temperature 11, dew point -16. Altimeter 3030. Arriving runway 27, departing runway 27. Advise on initial contact you have Oscar.
Okay, so the information you're looking at, the weather information, I don't normally really pay attention to that yet because, well, I just haven't really needed it. So maybe when I'm a better pilot one day I will use that. But I kind of ignore all the weather stuff you spoke about. The stuff I need to take is information Oscar, so O. Now that's the letter that references this information. So when I talk to ATC, I'll say we have information Oscar, and they all know that we've heard ATIS and we have that information. If they then change ATIS to update it, they might change it to the next letter in the alphabet, and then when you say I have information Oscar, then they'll say that information is no longer valid, and you have to go reach here into ATIS and get the information. So we've got information Oscar at altimeter 3030. So we just tune that. They might, in UK, ATIS will say QNH. In that case, you just swap the bigger knob to QNH, and they'll give you a QNH rather than a altimeter. Okay, so I can just confirm that over here. So you can see here where the QNH 1027 and okay 1026. So it's pretty accurate. Okay. So we've got that. Then it also said the active runway is runway 27. So that's also very good information. We jot that down, and that's then what we're going to do here. So under departures, we're going to choose runway 27. Then our flight plan said that we should use now you might not be fortunate enough to get a SID that matches your flight plan, but that's fine. As long as you get to that waypoint, that's fine. But in this case we do, so we're lucky. So we can just go to our SID here. So we have the Breaking 1 X-ray, which is Breaking 1 X-ray. So we just select that and execute, and that'll load that in. Cool. That concludes the setup for the FMC for now. Once the FMC is set up, then I start configuring the top panel. So what I do is I start on this side, I'll go down and go like this. If I miss something, that's fine. We're going to do a checklist afterwards. So we start here. So the we're looking for anything that's illuminated that will tell us there's something we need to do. So don't worry, there's nothing we can do here. So your dampener will be on. Then the fuel pumps we need to turn on. Now the center ones we don't have to turn on because we've got no fuel in our center tank. Okay. Then if we come down here, there's nothing we need to do here. Ground power is already connected, but we do need to turn on the APU now because we can't have ground connected to us while we're taxing. So we need to get our APU on. Then over here we're going to turn on our window heat. Okay, we're going to leave our probe heat for now because these you turn on once the engines are running. Then we're going to go down and turn on our electric hydraulics. This will give us better control of the airplane. It's kind of like power steering. Then we go down. Okay, let me start up here. And we can turn the trim air on. Then the aircon packs. So I don't want to get too much detail here, but basically, as far as I understand, we will use the APU bleed to bring pressure because the APU is running, and this is what will be used to start the engines. Once they're running, we'll turn the APU bleed off, we'll leave the engines on, and then we'll turn the packs onto auto and the valve onto auto. Okay, but this is the setup for now, it's fine. Then our pressurization, so this will pressurize our cabin for us at certain altitudes. We need to make sure this is configured. If you don't, you will die of hypoxia, no jokes. I have tried it before. So to do that, we're just going to go to our airports. So we know that our cruise altitude is the flight level 280, which is 28,000 feet. So we're just going to put that as 28,000. And our landing altitude is Edinburgh's elevation is 133 feet, so it's very low. So we're just going to put this in the nearest 50, so 150 is fine. Cool. So that's set up. I missed the fasten seatbelt signs, so these will be to on, and this will be for our flight attendants. Alrighty, so now we are finished over here. So now I move to the MCP, which is our autopilot sort of management tool. So what I do here is that we bring up our charts for the Brecken 1 X-ray departure. Okay. And I look for any information that we may need to help us with this departure. So since we're going to be using runway 27, we will be going this way around, and you can see here that it says we should be on the Brecken 330 course. Okay, Brecken is a VOR, so we can tune into the VOR just to make sure that everything is working correctly. Okay, so if you don't know what a VOR is, don't worry about this then, but I'm going to do it now anyway. It's just an extra navigation aid. You don't need it, but it's just an extra navigational aid. So the VOR station is 117.45. So I'm just going to 117.45, and it's on track 330. So we're just going to put course 330. Okay. And so we'll come up. We'll sort of maintain runway heading, then turn right on this track 330 on the Brecken VOR all the way to Brecken. Okay. We have some flight level restrictions which we will check out in a moment. Alright, so then we're going to, so we've got the course in, we've got our V2 speed programmed in, then our heading will be our runway heading, which in this case is for runway 27 will be course 267. The runway name matches the course, so 27 is for 270 degrees, but it's an estimate, so the exact will be 267. Okay, then we'll put our banking to 25 degrees. That's just how much the autopilot is allowed to bank the airplane. And then our altitude. So what I usually do here is on the SID there's a final altitude that we're allowed to go to. So it says do not climb above 6,000 until instructed by ATC. So we'll set this as 6,000. Now what Flight Deck System taught me is you put it to 6,100, then you just know as a pilot that you haven't actually been cleared there yet, but it's what we're expecting. Okay? But if you just want to leave it 6,000, that's fine too. Okay, then the second course we don't need to worry about. Then we need to get our flight directors on. Now, I do this from now, just so I don't forget. I'm not sure if it's normal or if it's bad, but I arm the auto throttle and the V and LNAV already. So if you don't know what V and LNAV is, basically V is your vertical navigation. So that's what our MCP will tell us. You can see at each point it will say we have a speed we need to be and an altitude. Speed, altitude, speed, altitude. So this will, as an autopilot, keep our speed and altitude matching this. And our LNAV will keep our lateral navigation, so our left and right matching the plan like this. Okay, so those are those two here. We can swap them out later, so just as a quick recap, so VOR is for locking onto a VOR, approach is for any ILS navigation which we will use for landing, heading select will force the plane onto this heading, level change will try and keep the speed I've selected, but use the pitch to change to a selected altitude, which will be this one. Speed will then force keep the speed. N1 will be max thrust. Altitude hold will stay on the current altitude, so not this altitude. It'll stay on the current altitude. Vertical speed will allow us to change a up-down speed to get to the selected altitude. Okay, and then the speed intervention is to tell the autopilot, I've changed this, you should recheck the MCP if we have VNAV selected, and same with the altitudes. We'll show you that in flight. This thing changes it to the Mach number. That's got to do with once you reach a certain altitude, the speed indicator and get true airspeed, blah blah blah, gets a bit inaccurate. I'm not really sure exactly that, but you don't really need that. Okay, so that covers the MCP. Then down here, so I don't really set anything on this panel, I just set the auto brakes. Jeez, let me just get my head down here. Auto brakes will be RTO. That just basically means if at any case during the takeoff I bring back the thrust, it will put max brakes on the plane as well to get me to stop abort the landing, the takeoff. Okay, so everything else I keep as standard. Okay, so now it is time to do our before start checklist. So we just pull this out here, and I start at the top. So battery we have is on. Ground APU is okay. So our APU is on now, so we can put that on the bus. So we don't need the ground anymore. So that's, for those of you interested, that's the little jet at the back here. So you can see this thing's on. It's a high pitched whine. So now we don't need power from our ground generator back here. That jet gives us power. Okay. Which reminds me, we can now go to ground services and tell them to disconnect the ground unit. Okay. So we're ready. Okay, ground APU is on. Okay, so we've set our fuel and the payload weight. Our hydraulic pumps are on. The Landing gear is down. Okay, that we iris selectors we put onto nav. Okay, we're not gonna check the lights. Oxygen, oil dampener we put on. The fuel pumps are on. The cabin utility buttons is over here. They are default on. So emergency exit lights are armed. Fast spot lights we put on. Window heating is on. Air conditioning we put the bleeds on. We set the flight altitude and landing altitude on the pressurization. We set the auto brake to RTO. Speed brake is down. Parking brake is set. That's default set. The stab trim color switches, okay, that's default normal. Radio 8 set. That we tuned into ADIS already, and we would normally set the frequency to delivery, but we're not going to do that today. Transponder is set on to start. Okay, so we will simulate that just now, so don't worry about that. Okay, so then radio trim, FMC, we did the full setup and the CDU. The thrust and settings at V speeds we did set. Stab trim we set to 4.7. Flight deck and window doors are all locked. Cabin passengers seated. Okay, so what I usually do now is start flight leg, so we get the passengers to board. I can actually, normally start the boarding before I start this checklist, but it's fine. Okay, so let's pretend we're going to contact delivery. So delivery will be at a certain frequency. We'll be able to get that over here. Okay, well then we'll tune into ground. Is the next one. But what we usually do is on VATSIM it'll tell you who's online. You can see the frequencies and tune them. So ground delivery will work something like this. So we will say Bristol delivery, good day, Zulu 0407 at stand 2 with information Oscar, requesting IFR clearance to Edinburgh. Okay, so if that was a bit fast, basically we just say who they are, who we are, where are we, and what do we want. Okay, so that's basically all communication works in that standard, as far as I know. Then they will respond to you saying 0407 squawk, so they will give you a squawk code, so that's like a unique code. We'll say squawk 0404, and you jot that down. And clear to IFR clearance approved to Edinburgh. Okay, and they might give you some QNH details, which we already have from ADIS anyway. And yes, that's about it. So then what you do is you go into your transponder, which is this box over here, and you put in the swap code. So that would be 0404. Okay, we leave it on standby for now. Okay, and then that is our transponder setup. Okay, so now we have clearance to delivery, with delivery, and we can then you might say tuning to ground at 121.92, and then hand you over to ground. So the next thing that you would do is request push and start. So this you would usually tune into ground, but since we already tuned into ground because there was no delivery, then we just say 0407 ready for push and start, and then they'll say something like 0407 push and start approved facing, and then they'll give you a direction. So in this case it will be facing east, okay, because we're going to end up on runway 27. So then you say okay, push and start approved facing east to 0407. So you always just repeat what he said, and then say your full sign afterwards. So once we have our push and start approved, we can then put the anti-collision light on to tell the ground crew that you can no longer approach the airplane. And
boarding is now complete. Flight attendants prepare the cabins. Verify arm door, standby for all call.
just wait for the cabin to be secured.
All right, we've got everyone strapped in. Give us a ring if you need anything.
Cool. And they should close the door for us. There we go. Okay, cabin is secured. We can then call our pushback facing east. Okay, so you have to come all the way back to the taxiway over here. Line it up nice and center on that line.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready. Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
Okay, so at this point it's a good idea to bring up the aerodrome chart. So we are here by the terminal. If you're not sure exactly, you can check the parking chart, and we at stand 2. So that's taxiway Zulu. So the aerodrome chart, we can just check this here. So we can expect, because we're going to runway 27, we are going to runway 27. Yes. Because we're going to runway 27, we can expect the ground to tell us to taxi to holding point of X-ray, which is this one over here.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
So it's good to expect what they're going to say, because sometimes they say it very fast. Now this is a very simple airport, but some airports they're like taxi to holding point, blah, 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 this, and they say it very fast, and if you're not ready for it, you will just miss it. So I just like to see what that taxiway is going to be like. Okay. So now they're going to be pushing us back, and we are going to start up the engines. Alrighty. Okay, so you guys might have noticed that it's a bit later now. That's because I had to go run a few errands, so I had to restart.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
But I've gotten everything back to where we were, so everything should be good. So now we're just going to get our pushback and start. So we usually start the engines on pushback, but they'll tell us when we can do that. So now we're just going to wait for the ground crew to tell us when to do what. You can just scan through everything, make sure everything is fine. What you can do is
So connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
release parking brake. So what you can do is go to
Starting
plan,
pushback and you may start engines.
and then you can step through to see our flight plan. Okay, but now we have to start the engine. So you start on the right engine, you just change it, start switch to ground, and then you monitor this, and you wait until it's 25%, and then you add fuel by moving this number 2 lever up. So as soon as it's 25%. Alrighty. this engine. Just gotta set my joystick again. I don't know why it does this. There we go. Okay, 25%. There we go. See the APU on the heat. Beautiful. Alrighty. Now the engines are on, we can do the before taxi checklist. So I'll just do the ones I remember and then we'll check the actual list afterwards. So generator on, so this takes power from the engines now instead of the APU, which means we can turn the APU off. We need to then set the air conditioning packs to auto on all three, and we can turn off the APU.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Set parking brake. Then we
disconnecting tow. Stand by.
We put on the probe heat for both engines now, and then we can set flaps to 5 for takeoff. That's what we configured. So we'll just check that the flaps come in at 5. And then we will put the the strobe lights into the steady position, which is down. That's for when we're on the ground. When we cleared for takeoff, we'll put them in the up position for permanently on. And then we can just verify quickly at the bottom here. So
Cell is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Yeah. Okay, so generators are on. We did that. APU we put off. Okay. Probe heat we put on. Anti-ice. Okay, so it's 14 degrees outside. If it's below 10, you need to put the engine anti-icing switches on. We don't need to worry about that. The air conditioning packs are being set up, which is the auto. Everything's off. Okay, flaps have been set, stab trim is set, and everything is good. It's just actually, yeah. Alrighty, now we will call ground and ask for our taxi clearance. So we'll just call in ground. We've spoken to them already, but so we don't need to address them. But if we haven't spoken to them yet, then we would say Bristol ground, good day, Zulu Sierra 407, ready for taxi, runway 27. And then they'll say Zulu Sierra 407 cleared for taxi via, where are we now? Should have your chart plugged in. Via Zulu, hold short, Alpha X-ray. So since we're here, we'll go down Zulu taxiway and hold short Alpha X-ray. Alrighty, then we can get going. So we put our taxi lights on and off we go. It might look like we a little bit right of the line. It's a bit of an optical illusion, I figured. Let's check it actually. Sorry. I'll show you guys now. So you just want that line slap bang in the middle of your here by this fire. Check. See? Pretty much slap bang on the line. Alright. We are here. So we would usually just call tower, or ground will actually call us saying call tower on so and so and so, so you connect to tower, and then they will say you are cleared for takeoff. And in which case we will put our strobes to on, which is 2 clicks up, put our landing lights on. We will put our transponder onto TARA, which is for in-flight so other planes can see where we are. We will then just check that our flaps and everything is in place, and then we can just check our before takeoff checklist. So configs, flaps set, stab trim set, takeoff briefing, we've gone through it, MCP is set up, transponders, TIRA, strobe lights and landing lights are set. So takeoff, before takeoff checklist complete. So now we're just going to go up onto the runway. When you have two pilots, you can probably do this on the way, so you don't actually have to make a full stop, but for one person it's a bit much. Alright, you're just going to turn nice and straight, and then as soon as your bearing matches your heading, so 267, then we know we're good. Then you're going to get 40%, so 40% on N1 on our engines, and then press this mic button, which is TOGA. So TOGA is takeoff go around. It will automatically throttle up to our configured N1 speed, which we set up in the FMC, sorry, and that will keep the throttle on there. You're going to wait for rotate VR, so they'll call it, the co-pilot will call it out, and then we're just going to pull up on the stick.
V1 rotate
to 15 degrees, positive rate, gear up. Okay, we watch our speed, 400. It must get at least 15 knots faster than our V2, in which case we can bring up our flaps. 1000. Turn on the autopilot now, so now the plane is flying by itself, and we can now bring up our flaps. Okay, now we can do the after takeoff checklist. So the gear will be off, the auto brakes will be off, the flaps are up, and our engine start switches must be auto, which they are. Altimeter is set to 6,000. So according to the standard departure here, it says we may not go over 6,000 until instructed by ATC. So usually at some point ATC, now they'll hand you over to approach or departure, and then they'll sort of tell you to which where you can climb to, and you can change that over here and just say hold this altitude or change with this vertical speed selector. And but let's pretend now that we've been cleared all the way to our cruise altitude of 28,000 feet, or flight level 280. So we'll just put this to 280. Now it's not actually going to go all the way there, because our flight computer was told it must stay at 6,000 feet, right at this point where it was forced on the standard departure. So if we wanted to change that, you see now it's leveling off at 6,000. Now I should have done this before I got to this point, but I didn't have enough time. But if you got cleared, you can just press the Alt intervention button, and it will recalculate our wait, or will it? Yes, we'll recalculate our ascent path, and it will basically get us back onto our altitude ascent to 28,000 feet. So now that we're above the transition altitude of 6,000 feet, we can click the standard button, and now we'll be on the standard altitude that all the planes in the area will be on, so we're all talking the same language. And then we have a speed restriction of 250 knots, which is programmed in here. See speed restriction 250 knots below flight level 100. So under 10,000 feet we're not allowed to go over 250 knots, that's why it's staying there. Yeah, and then the next thing we wait for is 10,000 feet because that's our pre-cruise checklist. We can just enjoy the view. Okay, so here's 10,000 feet. We can release the passengers and the crew. We can turn off our landing taxi lights. These lights are fine. It's going to be probably night time by the time we get there, so we'll put our logo light on. And everything else looks good. So let's have a look at our flight plan. So this key you can use to zoom in and out. This change from plan mode to map mode to VR and approach. So I only use plan and map. So plan is for when I'm flying, and when I want to see everything I go to plan. But when you are in plan mode, you must click on the legs button. And here you can step through our plan. So let's zoom in here. So there you can see we're going to fly up this path all the way to, okay, this is our top of descent TD, so that means at that point we will start descending the plane. And then it's going to get to ESCO and then nothing, because we haven't configured what to do after that. So we will need to configure our arrival for that. But to do that we will need to told by ATC what runway to expect. They'll say expect runway so and so well before you actually get there, but keep in mind they might change their mind by the time you get there. So what I'll do is I will just simply check this to see what runway to expect. So the weather there is QNH 1024, it's 290 degrees 7 knots, so it's very little wind. So that tells me we can probably expect the runway to fall. Okay, let's have a look what our flight plan said. So our flight plan says we also runway 24 via the Tweed 3 Alpha Star or standard arrival. Okay, so let's do that. We are going to come in on runway ILS 24 via the Tweed 3 Alpha arrival. Now keep in mind that can change during flight by ATC, but it's easy to reconfigure. You just come here and you select a new one. Okay, so here we've got new points. So let's get back to the legs and step. Zoom in a bit here. So we'll come in here to ESCO. That's our deceleration point. Then we have this very strange looking maneuver, which I'm going to chat about now. Then we'll come in at the sharp angle, and that is our final. So this is actually no good. And I will explain why in a second. Alright, so the reason why this is no good is because for an ILS approach you need to come in at an angle of 30 degrees to this line. So if we come in here to make a turn to be able to come capture this ILS, it's going to be way too steep. Alright, So usually what will happen is, let's open this approach quickly. Sorry, this arrival. So start we are now. Okay. So here you come in from Escdo, and here's that funny thing we saw here. Let's just get there again. Okay, so here's that maneuver. So that's why the FMC is a little bit confused, because it's actually a holding point. Now, to configure a holding point, we will go to the holds page, and you say hold at this point. You give a direction, inbound direction, which is 016, and you say it's a left hold. So then that will execute this hold correctly. So this is where you would normally come in and hold here, and then ATC will clear you. Alright. Then the dotted line, this basically means from this point ATC will bring you in to the runway. That's why after this point it looks very strange, this whole setup, because it's not actually supposed to take you there. That's where ATC will vector you to get that. But since we don't have ATC today, that's no problem. We will self-vector ourselves. But to make it easier, I want to make a new waypoint that makes this entry a little bit smoother. Alright? So to do that, you're just going to come to our routes. We're going to take this point, which is CI24. Charlie India 24. Okay? You're going to click on it. Then, that is this direction here. Now, CI24 is final approach for runway 24, which is on course 241. So we can actually put that in here now, just so we don't forget. So that is the final runway course 241. Then we want to have a point about 4 miles this way, 90 degrees. So to do that, we know that that line is 241. So if we minus 90 degrees from it, so 241 minus 90 degrees is what? 151 degrees, right? So we just say we put the point, then we say 151 degrees slash 4 knots. 4 miles, and then we place it there. Okay, it's going to look a little bit weird here, but don't worry. That is normal. Just say execute, and then it put the point there, but there's a discontinuity because it doesn't know how to get between them. So to fix that, you just select that point and you place it in that empty box, and boom, there we go. We have a point 90 degrees from that point, 4 miles away. So that's perfect. Alright, then the FMC was moaning. It's easy to find out. Alright. That is it. So now what I like to do now is keep your heading vector always in front of you. Your heading bug. And that is because you don't want to be in a position where ATC calls you and tells you to change your heading, and then you have to find where you are, and then it's just easier when it's like this. You can just heading select and you can vector yourself. Right, so we're in our cruise now. It might be night time by the time we get there. So let's just put some panel lights on. I'll have a beautiful picture of the sunset. Hey guys, okay, so we are back. I had to run some errors. I paused run some errands. I paused the simulator and it seems to be still working fine. So we're in our cruise at the moment. Let's take a look at the fantastic. So bit of a night cruise now. Looks like time didn't pause as well. That's no problem. So we're very much on our way now. We can zoom in and check here. Okay, so it's still tuned into Pole VOR. Probably get rid of that now. That's this one. There we go. So I just wanted to get over a few procedures that we'll be doing on the final approach. So as I said before, we created this extra waypoint to come in at this 90-degree angle so that we can make a left turn, get onto the 30-degree so we can capture the glide slope for the ILS. For those of you who don't know what an ILS is or how to use it, it's pretty simple. There's a radar machine on the runway that looks out in the direction of the runway, and when you tune your airplane into its frequency, it will give you information, whether your vertical information, so are you too high or too low for the glide slope, it's called. It's a 3-degree glide slope, so that's the slope you'll be coming down onto the runway. So are you too high or too low for that? And also your horizontal, so left or right. Are you too left of the runway, too right of the runway? So it will give that information. And then if you hit the approach key, you on the autopilot, it will actually fly that glide slope from the ILS for you. Okay. So to capture the ILS, we come in at this 90 degree, that's the base leg, and then we're going to turn left and come in at a bit of a 30-degree angle here, and we can tell, press the approach button, and then as soon as the radar comes into range, the plane will then turn onto final. Now, to make things easier for us, we need to know how far away we are from the actual landing to be able to do different things. So I like to do two things. If you click on the fix page, you can create fixed rings or lines. And what you can do is you can say runway 24, sorry. So on runway 24, create a / 10-mile fixed ring and a 4-mile fixed ring. Okay, so here you can see it made these rings. So now I know that this is 10 miles and it's 4 miles. When we get to 4 miles, we should be configuring to land. That's kind of the point where we should know from tower we're clear to land, and we can configure the plane for landing. On the 10 miles, we know that's sort of where we want to come in, vectoring. So what I'll probably do is just to show you guys, is we'll come in this way, but I'll do some manual vectoring, because that's typically what ATC will do to you. So I won't follow this line exactly, but you can. There's no problem in doing so. Alright, and then let's have a look at our arrival. So we went through the standard arrival. Let's see if there's any information we need to check here. Descent planning. Pilot plan for a possible descent clearance as detailed below. So below flight level 260. We must be below flight level 260 by. So what we can do is we can just check on the legs. We are 262. Close enough. So that's fine. And then 200. Yeah, we're below, so we are fine there. What else? What we can do is we can tune this Okay, there's no restrictions here. Yeah, we don't need that. Alright, so pretty much no restrictions. We have to be below 6,000. We'll be far below that. Okay, so I'm going to remove this tweed. So we will just go straight. So in other words, we're not going to hold here. But I will show you how to create the hold in case you do. So I'm just going to say delete tweed. Move that waypoint up and execute. There we go. So now we'll go straight there. If we did want to hold, what we can do, the hold point is on target. Now, the hold has two properties, or three actually. It's got the point at which you want to hold, the left or right, depending on what the pattern is. So this will be a left hold, and the inbound axis. So that's 016 degrees. So we can go to top. So first click on hold page. Go to top. You need to be out of plan mode when you do this. So you can say hold on top, then our inbound course would be 016 left. So we just say 016. And then you can set a leg time. So if it doesn't specify here, you can leave it on 1.5 minutes, but it might say you need to complete this in 1 minute. Then you can configure that here, and that will tighten the. So now I'm not actually going to execute this. I just wanted to show you guys. So let's go there. Okay, so there we go. There's the Totten hold, and it's very similar to, it's exactly like same as that. So then if I had to execute this, the plane would go into this hold and it would stay there until you exit the hold. Now to exit the hold, very simple, you just go to hold page and the hold will come up, and then there will be an exit hold button here. It's not there because I haven't actually executed this. So then it will exit the hold. Okay, so now you guys know how to hold. Alrighty, so our heading is at the moment 339. Let's just update that. And let's review our ILS approach. So we're going to be coming in on ILS 24. So let's have a look here. So this will tell us on the vertical path how we should come in. So we're going to come in at 3,000 feet. We're going to make the turn onto the glide slope. So here, so you can see the glide path is 3 degrees here. So this is where we'll capture the ILS, and then we're going to come down. So 3,000 feet is where we want to be. Now, here you can see we should be above 4,000 feet on this arc, and then below 3,000 feet on this turn in. Okay, and then this is the ILS concept. So here we have the frequency, so it's 108.90. So I like to just double check that by checking here as well. So ILS for runway 24 is 108.90. Okay, so that's correct. So we'll just tune that in there. Okay, and then we will the course in, which is 241 degrees, which is already. So now our ILS is figured. So let's just quickly have a look here. Okay, from input we're going to start coming down. Alright, so you can actually check here. On progress. Our end of descent is at 9 o'clock. So it's 20 minutes from now. We will be on the ground. And we've still got plenty of fuel. And usually this will tell us when our top of descent is, when we'll start descending. But for some reason, even though we are still cruising, it activated our descent already, but it's just not going down. It's just saying that we're very high on profile. But I'll explain that in a second. You can see our cruise is no longer activated. It's activated descent mode, but it's not actually descending. That's why we can't see our top of descent. I'm not sure why that happened. It might be a bug, but it doesn't usually happen. But it's no problem. So the descent path is basically a gradual 3-degree descent from our cruising altitude all the way down onto the glide scope and finally onto the runway. So to have this very smooth descent, so you don't want to be descending, sort of one solid descent. The FMC calculates that for you, and that calculation, it puts the value over here. So this is saying that we're 5,800 foot per minute above our descent profile, which basically means that we should not be going down yet. So when this gets to 0, this diamond will come to the middle, and then it will start dropping. And if we don't descend our plane, it's going to keep dropping, and it's going to start showing how much out of profile are we for our descent now. So we want to keep that diamond on our descent. We want to keep that diamond in the middle of this line the whole way. Then we'll be smoothly on our descent, calculated descent profile, and then that should get us to our point of, which is the CI24. It should get us to that point at exactly the right height for the ILS approach, which is 3,000 feet. So basically when this diamond gets to the middle, I will be configuring our descent. Okay, and then we will put on the seatbelt lights, and there's a bunch of other things we also need to do. So let's just check if there's anything. So max 210 knots for procedure. Just keep that in mind. Transition altitude is 6,000. What we can do now is we can tune the ATIS and get the information of the airport at the moment. Let's do that. 121.205. Okay, the diamond is coming down now, so now I'm just going to say down to 3,000 and altitude. Now we are a little bit high on profile all of a sudden. Not sure what that is. That's a bit of a glitch, definitely. Now the plane will start descending. It's going to try and recuperate that descent, so it's going to descend quite high. Anything under 5,000 at this height is alright. It's not going to be uncomfortable. If it wants to descend more than 5,000 foot per minute, we will manually intervene and just soften it. But you'll see now it's catching up to get us back onto the descent profile. Okay, so getting a little bit of speed here. So we'll just on the speed brake. Okay, let's chat to ATIS. 131.35. Okay, our speed is coming down and we're back on the descent profile, so that diamond is in the middle, so 100%. Now it's descending at a steady rate of 2,300 foot per minute, which is perfect, and we are decelerating slightly and at idle thrust. So I'm just gonna put the speed brake back, and the green light means it's armed. So if you pick it up and put it there, it's unarmed, but I'm gonna leave it armed. It must be armed when you land, because that's what it's going to use to actually push up the speed brakes when you land. Okay, so since we can't get ADIS, that's fine. We can see the QNH here anyway, 1024. So what you can do is you can turn this QNH 1024. So here you can see we've got it in, but it's still set to standard. So it's just as a backup. So when we get to our transition altitude, which is 6,000 feet, if you remember, I'm going to press the standard button, and then we will be on the correct pressure settings for the airport, and our altimeter will then be accurate for that airport. So now that's configured. Okay, so we are very much descending now. So we're going to put the seatbelt signs on, and we are going to review our descent checklist. So our pressurization landing altitude is set. Our anti-ice is not required, no visible precipitation. We are under 10 degrees, but you only need to use anti-icing if there is weather, clouds or rain. Otherwise, I think we're going to go. And then we are okay, so then our altitude and speed bugs are set. So at the moment we're using LV nav, but they are set to 3000, and then we are getting this set correctly on. Alright, so we're getting pretty close to our landing now, so now we need to be sharp. So this is normally the point where we're almost at tartan, in which case we would have normally done the hold, and ATC would have given us over to approach, and then approach would have vectored us in. So I'm going to do some manual vectoring, but I'll try to keep it as
Edinburgh information Juliet.
There comes our ATIS.
2000 Zulu weather. Wind 290 at 5 variable 250 to 330, visibility 10. Sky clear, temperature 9, dew point 1. Altimeter 3018. Arriving runways 2430, departing runways 2430. Advise on initial contact, you have Juliet.
Okay, so that's great. Basically, active runways are 24 and 30, and we are using 24, so that's good. And information Juliet asks, and the altimeter is check here. Yeah, everything's good. Okay, so now this is where the plane gets a bit, well, the descent gets a little bit more tricky. So we are on a descent profile, perfect down profile. We are descending at a certain speed, and the plane should be at idle. But now we slowly decelerate our speed because it's at idle and it's kind of gliding down. But then every now and then the plane will push up the throttle, get us back there, and then it will slowly decelerate. So if you want to be sort of clever, you can tweak your rate of descent and your throttle so that you have a smooth, constant descent without throttling up and down all the time. But it's not necessary, as long as you want to. Okay, then the other thing I didn't speak about was the weather radar. So the weather radar, at the moment there's no weather, but it will pop up with these lodges, and there's green and yellow and red parts. Basically, pretty self-explanatory. Don't fly into the red parts. It's very, very, very turbulent, and it can actually cause you to crash your plane. So we leave the weather radar on. But if you're coming in for descent, I like to turn on the terrain radar instead. So the terrain radar will scan and pick up any terrain that is sort of close to us. So this is quite flat, but if you're flying in a mountainous area, it'll pop up like this. Green means you're very good, but it'll pop up with yellow and red spots, and that means if you have to fly towards that, you would probably hit something. So it's good to have this on. And yeah, okay, so we're coming up to our Tartan waypoint now, at which point we're going to vector ourselves. Let's just get our heading bug set. Okay, so now, since we're not going to use VNav and LNav anymore, I'm basically going to say I want to keep this vertical speed at 1,300 foot per minute down to 3,000 feet, and the speed must stay at 250. So then what we can also do is we can say heading select, so keep this current heading of 007. So now we're not using our FMC anymore, we are manually autopiloting the plane down, and this allows us to tweak left and right, get vectored from the ATC, and make sure that we remain nicely on that descent profile. So you can see we're getting a little bit under the descent profile, and we can then, if we're getting under, it just means we need to get down faster. Sorry, up faster, my bad. It means we're descending too quickly. So there you can see it stops. Now we're descending at 1,000 foot. And it looks like we can shallow out even more. So 900 foot. Zoom in a picture. Okay, so we're below 10,000 feet, which means landing lights must come on. And we'll leave our taxi light off, and that'll tell us that we are not clear to land yet, just so that we know. Our seatbelt lights are on, and we can check our approach checklist. So our altitude is set to our final capture of 3,000 feet, and our approach aids are set on 108.90, which is our ILS, and we have a course of 241, so approach checklist complete. Right, Vicky. So remember, at this Tartan point is where we would normally enter the hold, and that's when we would get vectored by ATC. But we're going to just pretend that ATC already contacted us, so we're on approach, and they're going to start vectoring us now. So we're dropping a little bit below profile, but I'll fix that by changing to 1,000 foot per minute. Here's the city of Edinburgh. Never been. Okay, so let's pretend that the approach is now vectoring us. So Zulu 007, fly heading 030, flying heading 030, so I'm going to get vectored by ATC. then what we can do, if we want to, is keep our FMC up to date by, if you keep double tapping this, it will update the route from where you are to change this line the whole time when you're getting vectored. So this 0407 set speed 220 knots down to 220. Okay, so we're going down to 220 knots just to get us ready for our final approach. So here's our 10-mile ring. So that's good because we can keep an eye on that. Okay, listening very nicely actually. Weather is great. Usually we're below 6,000 feet now, so now we need to switch from standard to the barometer meeting. So now you can see, because we were actually a little bit out, but that's no problem, we can fix that. This altitude disagreement just means that the co-pilot settings and your settings are not the same, but that's fine. Sorry, the first officer rather. Updates. Future 407, turn left heading 345. Left 345, 20. Okay, so ATC is probably going to vector us past this point that we created, but that was just in case we didn't get vectors. So we can actually go ahead and remove that point if we want to. And we can do that by simply overriding it with the next point. And it'll go straight there. We're still well on profile and everything is looking good. 7 turn left heading 333. Okay, the other thing is we keyed in 3,000 feet and we're descending to that immediately. But often in your approach, you're not allowed to just go down to whatever altitude you want. You always only go down to what you've been cleared to. So if they say 10,000 feet, you have to stand on 10,000 feet until they say that you can descend as planned or
1,000 to go.
give you a new altitude. Okay, so we're a little bit below profile, so let's just thin it out a bit. Okay, so we're on base leg now, so that's the leg before we're going to turn on to final. So at this point we usually set flaps to up to 5. So it's flaps 1, and then every time you put a flap you reduce your speed to that flap setting. So here's -1, so we then get the flap down. Right, so 007, turn left heading to 327. Left 327. Right, then they'll probably give us a final. Okay, wait, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. So now we'll set flaps 5. So then we'll bug down our speed to 5. Now we won't go more flaps than then 5 until we turned on to our final leg. Okay, so now they'll say something like, well, soon they'll say turn left, something like this, to give us the 30-degree intercept for our ILS. Okay, so we're a little bit. Now we can arm our approach. So we just click the approach button, and then as soon as it comes into contact with the ILS, should any moment now, we will see. So we've armed the approach. There we go. Pops in. Should start our left turn. The single channel, and there we go. The plane is now captured. So now it's going to turn into runway heading for us and line us up very nicely, and it's also going to start descending. So now with that, you'll see our vertical speed is all gone and everything, because now the plane is being flown by the radar on the ground basically. It's going to fly that for us until we get closer. So now what we'll do is we'll go down flaps 10, and we will not go more than flap 10 until we were going to configure to land. So we were going to configure to land at about 4 miles. So at this point we will tune into ground, and we will quickly do our checklist. So start switches continuous, speed brake only armed, speed brake armed, water brake set to 2, so that's because this is a long runway. Flaps, green lights, landing lights are on. Okay, so landing ship is complete. So now we will start configuring for landing. So once we've done that, we contact tower, and they will say whether we are cleared for landing. So let's pretend we've been cleared. So then we go landing gear down. Once our landing gear is down, we are going to just go to init ref here, and we're going to choose this 30 flap. That's our reference speed. I'll explain that in a sec. And then we're going to flap down to 50, and back down, and 20, flap 25, and finally flap 30. Okay, now you'll see the VREF speed, we must never get below that speed. So we always fly at VREF plus 5. So VREF at the moment is 138, so that plus 5 is 1. Yeah. Okay, so now we let the plane stabilize itself. We've configured it for landing. It's 1,000. It's ready to land.
1,000 feet stabilized, Mr. Burchell.
And we need to now make sure that everything is running alright. Okay. Then I'm just going to change my throttle to match the throttle of the plane. So there we go. Then I'm going to disengage autopilot, disengage auto throttle, and now we are flying. Then we're just going to keep an eye on the flight directors, that's 500. The ILS. Just keep it in the center there, so yeah, we need to raise a little bit. 400. And we check the speed. The speed's dropping, we need to do a bit of throttle. A bit high, come down. And then we're going to watch the PAPI lights. So we always want 2 whites and 2 reds. 300. We go back to profile. 200. Straight down the middle of the runway. Speed's looking good. 100. Height's looking good. 50, 40, 30, 20. Cut 10. Throttle. Oh, we're floating. There we go. And reverse thrusters out. Get back up to center line. We wait for 60 knots, then we're going to cancel our reversers. 80 knots. Okay. 60 knots. And then also missed that turn off. So I have to get the next one. So all in all, not a bad landing. It was a bit of a floater. I just flared a little bit too much. You don't need to flare that much. You can just put the plane nicely down on the threshold point. Okay, flaps up and speed brakes up. our speed now won't show you. It's up here and now. So you don't want to turn when you're more than 10 knots. ATC would be pretty miffed with you if you had to come all this way to climb off the runway. But that's fine, because we're beginners. Alrighty, now that once we have fully vacated the runway, tower will put you through to ground. So let's just stop here for a sec. Tower will put you through to ground, and you should have your charts ready for ground, and they will then tell you where to taxi and give you a stand to stop it. So we're going to come all the way down to main apron, and then let's just choose a parking. We'll choose stand number 7. Okay, so let's say they tell us to park. Then we start our cleanup process. Usually the first officer does so. We turn our responder back to alt off. Our landing lights come off. Our strobe lights go to steady, and our speed brakes come off. And I believe that is it for now. Then we can start up our APU. So when we stop there, we can take power from APU and turn off our engines. So we'll start that up. And now we just get our lights on our cockpit. Okay, so sorry, things were a bit hairy there at the end, but the VREF. So what I did was, in initial reference, when you click there, you can choose basically 25, 30 or 40 degrees flaps there. And whichever one you choose, that's the speed at your VREF speed. That's the speed you may not go below, otherwise you'll stall. So I chose 30 degrees, which is the standard one. Then you make sure you're on 30 degrees flap when you land, and you also make sure that you do not go below VREF. So I always aim for 5 knots above VREF. So VREF is 145, so I bugged down to 150, and I just kept it on that speed, and that's where you touch down at. Okay, so flight directors can come off, and our APU is ready for us. Okay, so we're going to turn on here to echo. Stand number 5 is right over here, I believe. Yes. Okay. Nice wide turn. Hopefully this indicator works to tell us how close we are or far. Oh shit, we chose a stand that doesn't have that. Damn. Then we will set our parking brake and put power on from the APU, and then we can switch up our engines. And then we can switch off our taxi lights our anti-collision light that tells the ground crew they can approach the aircraft now, and that is it. Now we can release the passengers. And we have completed. So thanks for watching this video, and I will leave you with a replay of that sweet landing.
25. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I hope you